This is the Double Doink Dynasty League podcast with Boyer, Andy, and your host, Tyler.
It's impossible.
Season's going to end on a double doink.
Welcome back to Double Doink Dynasty podcast presented by your performance-enhancing dads. What's happening, fellas?
Football's happening. It's about time.
We're almost at draft day. Draft day is coming up here shortly, so hopefully we'll get some more trade talks from Colin Nolan.
Hopefully not.
All right, hopefully not. Boyer, how many of those have you had? Do you know?
All of them. I'm pretty
All
sure.
of them.
All of
Okay.
them.
I lost count.
At least one a day, one every other day?
Yeah, just about.
All right.
Mine
Fair
have
enough.
tapered as of late. I felt a little concerned that he was not okay, but I got one over the weekend, and I was like, okay, he's alive.
He does
good.
one. He does one every Sunday for me. We have a deal that he sends them on Sunday. So when we catch up, talk to each other about how the week went, why I don't want to accept his trade, those type of things.
Fair enough. All right. Well, and talking about Colin Nolan, he was on last year's initial rookie draft, and due to his pick situation where he doesn't have any in the first two rounds, I didn't really feel like he was necessarily needed this year because his input means nothing.
He probably doesn't know a whole lot about what's going on at the top of the draft.
He doesn't have to.
Why would you?
He starts up again at the 305. He'll be in this draft,
Sure.
assuming he holds on to that and doesn't sell it for a guy that just retired.
He's trying to trade that to me for the 201, but then there's like nothing to bridge that gap, so I'm confused how that works.
That's fair. It's not a big difference. You should just give it up.
Yeah. It's only 16 picks.
So, all right. Well, with that, we're going to cover a couple of the trades that have happened this offseason so far. We are going to cover the 2 rounds of the rookie draft, pre-NFL draft. So no landing spots, no nothing happening. We're doing it based on the team needs of our league, mixed with best player available depending upon the situation. So Andy, you want to hit us with these trades before we get into the draft?
Sure. Let's do Underhill and Mattoon. This was way back on March 2nd. I don't think we hit this in the podcast because it's been a while. There's a lot to unpack here. So Underhill sends the first round 7th pick in this upcoming draft, along with Derek Carr and 2023 third rounder. Mattoon sends back the 2nd pick in the 2nd round, Ronald Jones, 2023 third rounder, a 2023 5th rounder, and a 2024 second. Now the 2023 third rounders, one's Ty's, one's Nolan's, and no offense to either of you, but you both finished bottom 2 of the league this year. So I'm going to go ahead and call those a wash. So effectively what we're looking at here is the 107 and Derek Carr for Ronald Jones and a couple of seconds.
Yeah, we'll wash out that 5th too, because
Yeah, who cares? So what do you guys think?
so this was prior to Ronald Jones being moved to the Chiefs. With Ronald Jones going to the Chiefs, I don't think that necessarily helped Ronald Jones' situation. It didn't
Hurt, right? It wasn't great last year.
Right. It didn't hurt, but having Clyde Edwards-Helaire there, they still have Jerick McKinnon, I believe, and they're not a big running team. So, granted, they got rid of Tyreek Hill as well, so who the hell knows what this team's trying to be, but they're not going to run the ball that much with Patrick Mahomes. So, Colin Mattoon getting a 107, I think, might be the best piece in this trade.
Yeah, that's a good point. And not for nothing, I mean, Mattoon has Josh Allen, who's potentially, depending on your opinion, the best quarterback to have in Dynasty. But he didn't have. I don't know who he had behind him. He is the current only other quarterback on his roster now is Derek Carr. Derek Carr just got a huge contract. He just got Devontae Adams, so that's not a bad ad. Even if he's just a depth piece, it's a solid one.
So when this trade was happening, Mattoon actually reached out to me and he's like, "Hey, I don't remember who else Underhill has on his team at quarterback. He's got like 12 of them, but Mattoon reached out to me and he said, "Hey, who do you like more, Derek Carr or other guy?" And I was like, "Derek Carr. He's a pass happy offense. They're going to bring in another weapon. They've got Waller. Renfro showed up well at the end of the year. Grab Carr." And turns out, probably your best choice. Where are you going to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think that the 107 and Derek Carr is by far and away the win. This isn't a terribly deep draft. 107 should still get a solid player, but the 2 seconds to me is just kind of meh, because as we get later in, those become more dart throws. Ronald Jones, I had Ronald Jones on a couple fantasy teams last year. It didn't work out for me, so I'm very anti-Ronald Jones. But yeah, Derek Carr has all these weapons. He had a good year last year without Devontae Adams, and now he has them. Like, I think he got the 2 best pieces here for a couple seconds and a running back who may be on his last legs in the NFL. I would have accepted that trade 100%.
Yeah, I think Mattoon definitely gets the known quantities here. I mean, a 107 is going to be a lot better than a second round pick. And Derek Carr, you pretty much know what you're getting. To his credit, this trade happened like 2.5 weeks before the Devontae Adams news broke. So, great luck there. But then you look at Underhill's side, getting Ronald Jones moving to a new team. I don't think that had happened yet either. And then a couple of seconds. There's upside there. There's potential that any one of those 3 things could be very good for him, but it's less of a known quantity. So turning one of his many excess quarterbacks and a first round pick into 3 maybes, I don't think is great. It's not the direction that I like to head, but it could work out for him. So,
right.
You'll move on to the other one?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, less pieces in this one because there's not 400 picks, but 3 teams involved. So we're gonna treat this as a 3-way trade and just talk about what each team received in the deal. Ty gets the last pick in the first round of the draft, a 3rd round pick in 2024, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Colin Nolan gets DJ Chark, Rashad Bateman, thank you, and a 3rd round pick in 2023. And Boyer gets Calvin Ridley and the 207 this year. Since both of you are involved in this trade, I will go first. I know Colin Nolan really likes Bateman, but losing ASB to get the haul that he got, I'm not super jazzed about that from Colin Nolan's standpoint.
He also lost Ridley in this.
Yeah, and I get wanting to unload Ridley, and it's tough. It was tough to unload Ridley. So I appreciate that. Like, there wasn't a lot of value to be had there, but I feel like you gotta just hold the guy, right? Like, if we have a 10-guy bench, and I know that Ridley's mental health leave or whatever you want to call it. Now it's a gambling suspension, but last year, he was taking up bench space because he didn't qualify for the injury list. So, like, that's a bummer. But he's just a guy that you couldn't sell. You weren't in a position to be able to sell him because you had to sell him for pennies on the dollar, and that's what he did. So, now Boyer gets to deal with him, but he didn't have to pay very much for a guy who still has an immense amount of talent and is still a very young age. But by the time he comes back, he's going to have been out of the league for 2 full years almost. So we'll see how that works out. But in Boyer's favor, he didn't pay very much for him. So, Ty, how did you feel negotiating this with what you gave up and what you ended up with?
So I got rid of Chark and Bateman And I might have gotten rid of a pick in here somewhere, but I got rid of Chark and Bateman. I picked up Amon-Ra St. Brown. To be honest, I think Amon-Ra has just as high of an upside as Bateman. I know Bateman's picked earlier last year in the rookie drafts. Everybody likes him, says he's got huge upside, but he just doesn't have the passing volume that Amon-Ra is going to have.
Not in that offense. I
I
love the talent.
Right. Even if Detroit brings in another wide receiver, I think Amon-Ra has found his spot there. Yeah. The GM of Detroit last year came out and was like, Amon-Ra earned his spot. We're getting him the ball. He's a player. He's part of our future. It could just be him saying, hey, he's doing well. Let me talk him up right now. But it also could be the dude showed out when he had to. And yeah, I get Swift was out and Hockenson was out. But at the same time, you had shit behind Amon-Ra. So at that point, what should they be doing? They should be double covering the only guy that's beating them. But the dude was still producing. So I said, let me take a shot on that. Let me get the 112. And that, the third rounder, it is what it is. It's so far out in 24, third round. I'm not near as concerned about that. Mm-hmm. But getting a good receiver, so Amon-Ra and Bateman, we'll call a wash. And then I got the 112 and a third for DJ Chark. I'll take that.
Right.
So I was happy where I ended.
Yep, you should be. Boyer, you want to talk about your side a little bit?
Yeah. So I was looking at who I could possibly get at the 112, and Ty was talking to me about this trade that he was looking at with Nolan, where he was going to be receiving Calvin Ridley, and he wasn't sure he really wanted Ridley. The way that things were working out, he wasn't really sure that he wanted to go through it. And I was like, if you could just move me down a few spots, if I could get a second round pick back, I would take Calvin Ridley if you could make that work. And I think it worked out where Nolan was like, oh, well, then I would want a third back in some way, shape, or form, which Tyler said he was willing to give. But when I looked at the 112, I was, my team is pretty set, and it's got enough depth, especially at wide receiver down, that I figured I would take the big swing on Calvin Ridley rather than a little swing at the 112. And if Ridley hits, it's going to make my team look absolutely stacked. If he doesn't, that I've moved down from the 112 to the 27, I still get a player out of it who could still hit, maybe just less likely of a chance. So I'm totally fine with it. I know is that Calvin Ridley could not play ever again, and I'm still okay taking that risk. I think it's worth it for what I had to give up for. So the planets kind of aligned, and Nolan was happy with what he was getting out of the deal once we added in some of these picks. And I think as far as me and Ty are concerned, we're pretty happy. And for the record, Ty, I'm not a huge fan of Bateman simply because of his situation. I think ASB could be awesome. So I think Ty probably wins the trade overall. I'd like to think that I'm somewhere in second place, and Nolan might be a little bit farther away in third.
So let me not rag on Nolan's side here for a minute. He is a rebuilder. He brought in Chark and Bateman, both younger receivers, got a third to go with it, offloaded Ridley, and Ridley's not a piece for a rebuilding team, which is why I didn't want Ridley. He was like, Tyler, take Ridley. And I'm like, what is Ridley going to do on my team? Sit on the bench and me try to trade him later? Like, it's not a rebuilding piece, and I didn't want it. So I also understand Nolan's side of let me dump Ridley because he's not a rebuilding asset. And Boyer, you're more in the win now window in the next 3 years, and Ridley could be a big piece to that.
Right, exactly.
So out of the three of us, you're the one that needed him, not me or Nolan, just based on the rebuild that's happening for me and him.
Yeah, and if he feels good getting, Chark to replace him, even though he ended up giving a little extra or whatever, then that's good because, Chark in 2 years will probably be worth more than an aging Calvin Ridley at that point. And that's maybe when his window starts to open up. So I definitely see it from his perspective. I'm not a huge fan of Bateman. I like ASB better. I'm not a huge fan of Chark. On your side, I would rather have the 112. So I think your side getting ASB, who is one of my favorite wide receivers out of the four that were traded, and getting a first round pick, that's a good haul right there.
Yeah. And Chark, this was done before Chark got moved to Detroit. So now you got Bateman or Amon-Ra and Chark in the same offense, And I'm guessing they probably bring a wide receiver in the offseason.
Right.
So I have a bad feeling Chark might be the odd man out there because after Amon-Ra performed last year, I don't see him losing spots at Chark right now. So, But anyway, let's move on from that trade. Let's get into this draft. You guys good with that?
Yeah.
I'm happy if you're happy.
All right. So let's jump over to the draft. Team number 1, the pick 101 is going to Burns. Colin Nolan has traded this away to Burns, or it got traded and Burns has received it some way, shape, or form. Burns has a 101. I'm going to go based on Burns loves wide receivers. He took Chase last year, loved it. He built his team heavy on wide receivers, but I think he needs a running back. I think he goes Breece Hall, but he has talked up Treylon Burks. He likes Treylon Burks. We'll see what happens, but I'm giving him Breece Hall at the 101.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I will not be surprised to see a receiver come off the board, but he's got Chase and Jefferson, and he's got Pollard and Montgomery at running back. So yeah, I'm with you.
All right, so Boyer, you want to take team 2? It's me.
Yep. So Ty, looking at your team, for a rebuild, you don't look too bad. You could use depth for sure. And I don't know why you've got Zach Wilson at quarterback. So you need a quarterback, but I'm not taking one at 1-2 for that.
I have Trey Lance on my taxi.
Okay, fair enough. Either way.
I've also got Carson Wentz, which could play for a year in Washington. But I've got 2 young quarterbacks on my rebuild.
Either way, I could see you taking a quarterback at some point because you got to find someone who's going to hit, but not at the 1-2. Then looking at your receivers, Higgins, good. Mon-Ra, we just talked about. Jalen Reagor in that 3rd spot. That's
tough.
That's tough. And I think that you've got a prime spot here to land whatever wide receiver you want. I'd give you Treylon Burks just because I feel like that's a natural top guy. Obviously, where players are going in the draft could drastically change your opinion on who you take, but I would put Burks here at 2, all things considered.
Fair enough. All right, so Andy, let's jump to the 3.
Yeah, so Paul's team, Paul took over for Chris, right?
Yes.
Ty, I think, has spent some time with this, but maybe Boyer hasn't. So Boyer, I'll ask you, who are Paul's 2 running backs right now?
Swift and Akers.
Swift and Akers, because my thought is, okay, well, Chris didn't have running backs. That was his whole issue, but he did have Swift, and Paul came in and snagged Akers. So I don't feel like formerly Chris's team needs a running back here at the 103. I do think that Paul knows he's in this for the long haul. He's probably not hunting for playoffs this year. So having said that, I'm going to take what I feel is the most talent at wide receiver in this draft, albeit with a torn ACL. I'm going Jamison Williams here.
All right.
And, because of that torn ACL, he could end up falling to some of these better teams like the Chiefs or the Packers later in the 1st. That would be an absolutely amazing spot for him.
Yeah. And I mean, Paul's not counting on him week 1. So I think the talent wins out here, and that's what I'm expecting to be at the 103.
I like it.
Okay. His wide receivers are Corey Davis and T.Y. Hilton and Zay Jones and Valdez-Scantling. Yeah, it's
Kadarius Toney. That's good, right?
Because he's having a lot of good character traits right now.
He's happy with his team. His team's happy with him.
So, all right. Well, that is an interesting throw in there. I like it. And I do like that, Paul could take that year or 8 weeks or whatever into the season, sit on it, doesn't matter. Because Paul's really not winning this year. So if it tanks it, it's not a bad pick. Granted, he's got my pick next year, so he's going to have a high 1st rounder that year too. So, all right. So next up is Jer Fry. They are sitting on some older running backs with Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, Raheem Mostert. And then they've got, they're an older team in general, but they got Allen Robinson, Brandon Cooks, Tyler Lockett. Who knows what Will Fuller will be? They got Deebo Samuel. So I think they're pretty set at wide receiver. But Cook and Elliott are not ideal for dynasty at this point. They're getting older. I think this is where they go ahead and grab Kenneth Walker off the board, take the second best running back in the class, and call that good.
Yeah, I think that they had mentioned in the chat that they were expecting to get a running back at the 4th pick. So I think they already tipped their hand there, but that was a while ago. So we can see.
All right, Boyer, team 5, which is Andy. Who's Andy taking?
Well, let's pull up his team and check. So the Javonte news hurts a little bit.
Makes me sad. Makes me real sad.
But you do have Mixon, and then wide receivers. You got Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, Mike Williams, solid wide receiver core. Tom Brady at quarterback with Joe Burrow as well. So, I mean, top to bottom, Andy's team looks pretty good. I think he's pretty much just going to look at best available right now. I wouldn't be shocked if he went running back, especially if Isaiah Spiller ends up in a good spot. But right now, I think best available is a wide receiver. And that gives him options as far as where he's going to go in his flex. So I'm going to go with, personally, I like Drake London. So I'm going to go with London.
All right. So Andy lands Drake London at the 105. Andy, you got Colin Kelly at the 106.
Yeah, Colin's got Derrick Henry and Travis Etienne at running back. His receivers, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Judy, and Bobby Trees getting a little up there. He's got Kittle at tight end. Not that there's a tight end we would be looking at here, but I really feel like running back or receiver that Colin's going to be happy to get either one, depending on how these first 5 picks in front of him go. But given Derrick Henry's injury last year, his usage, the fact that Etienne's coming off of a season-ending injury, I think that Colin's probably going to lean running back, and if Spiller's there, he's going to be happy to take him.
All right, Isaiah Spiller goes at 6 to Colin Kelly. That puts me on the board with Colin Mattoon and at 107 for the Underhill spot. Colin Mattoon is pretty well covered top to bottom.
Hate that guy.
Pisses me off.
He's got Jacob. He could use another. He does not have Jacob. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong team again. He's got
Chubb.
He's got Kamara and Jones and Chubb. He's got Mike Evans, Cup. He's got Pittman. Some people like Donovan People-Jones. Who knows what's going to happen with him coming up? Paris Campbell. He's got some solid guys here, but I think wide receiver 3 is probably going to be his biggest downfall right now. So I'm going to go ahead and land him a wide receiver, especially with the 3 running backs off the board. I don't see there being a whole lot of a debate on a running back right here. And if Garrett Wilson falls this far, a lot of people have him in the top 2 or 3. So I think Colin would be thrilled to get a guy like Garrett Wilson, or to be honest, or even Chris Olave, depending upon landing spot. But I think Garrett Wilson is the pick here. So Colin Mattoon with Garrett Wilson at the 107. Boyer, you traded away the 108. So Burnsy has it. Who's Burns taking at the 108?
Burns. So he got Spiller, and now he gets to try and add to his team.
He didn't get Spiller. He got Hall. But
I'm sorry, Bryce Hall. You're right, not Spiller. Reading the wrong box.
You're good.
All right. I mean, really, man, he is stacked at wide receiver. I almost see him. Oh man, if Spiller had fallen this far, I think he takes him because I think he stacks running backs with where he's at. Without Spiller on the board, I'm going to go with best wide receiver, and he just tries to make his wide receiver room crazy good. And then hopefully Bryce Hall in a year or 2 is the guy, and he can add a piece somewhere in there. So I'm going to go with, I like Olave. I'm going to go with Olave.
All right. So Andy, you are up with me at the 109. I have Matt's pick.
Mm-hmm.
So who am I taking with 109?
Yeah, this is tough because you need the RB depth, I think. And you've got youth everywhere. You've got Gibson, Dobbins, Higgins, ASB, Rager, Fryermuth. Like your whole team is young. So there's a lot of upside there, but you just don't have the running back depth. So that makes me want to give you White or Cook. But I really like Dotson. But you already got Burks in this draft.
The good thing, Andy, I also have the 112, so I can loop back
Jesus
around
Christ, Ty. Yeah. Well, okay. So if
I'm not telling you what I'm going to do, but I'm letting you know I've also got 112. So if you think one of those guys might fall,
I mean, I do think one of those guys is going to fall, but at the same time, if you're getting Treylon Burks in this draft and you've already got ASB, you've got Higgins, like I think your team is set either way. I'm going to go with White because I like him better than Cook. If you're Ty, you're probably just picking whoever has the earlier birthday because you like your youngins
or the most injuries.
Well, that too. But I'm gonna go White because really, whoever you get at 12, I think you'll be happy with that guy too. So I'm gonna make sure you get the running back that you want here between White and Cook. I don't know which one it is, but I'm gonna go White for you.
That's fair. All right, so then Paul has Colin Mattoon's pick at 110. Paul snagged Jamison Williams at the 103. And Paul, like we talked about earlier, could kind of go any direction and be happy with it. To be honest with you, he's got Mariota, Trubisky, and Lamar Jackson at quarterback. I could almost see Paul possibly pulling the trigger on a Malik Willis here, depending upon landing spot. Just because Lamar Jackson was hurt last year. Who the heck knows about Trubisky? Who knows about Mariota? If you can grab your quarterback, but I don't think he does because I think next year's class is going to be better at quarterback, and I think he'll go ahead and wait because he doesn't necessarily need it this year. But I could see Paul taking a quarterback. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and give Paul another wide receiver and Jahan Dotson here because I think he needs to fill out those skill position players here, and then he'll worry about his running backs a little more next year when the class is supposed to be better. So Jahan Dotson at the 110 to Paul. Boyer, 111 to Andrew.
That's Andrew L.
Yes.
Pull up that team real quick.
He's got Prescott and Lawrence at quarterback. He's got Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Taylor, Elijah Mitchell at running back. He's got Michael Carter, Stephon Diggs, Juju, Brandon Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb. And then he's got TJ Hawkinson at tight end. So pretty much top to bottom, he doesn't have a whole lot of holes.
Yeah. Running backs are pretty set. Elijah Mitchell is injured often enough that he may consider taking a running back here just to make sure he's got the depth behind him. He's got, you listed 4 or 5 wide receivers there that I'm pretty confident in for him. So I'm going to say he takes James Cook off the board to try and bolster that running back depth.
All right.
So tie with the last pick in the first round.
Puts me back on the clock.
So here's where I'm at. I want to give Ty a quarterback, but I looked ahead and Ty's got the 203. So only 2 picks in between these two. And the 2 in between them are me, and I've got Brady and Burrow. So I'm set at quarterback. Underhill has basically every other quarterback in the league. So he probably doesn't need one, but Lord knows he'll take one. But I think Ty's safe to wait to the 203 if he's going to take a quarterback. He doesn't have to do it here. So that means that he can take best available, already having taken Burks and White in this draft. So I'm just going to pick from the top and take Bell.
All right. So before we jump into round 2, anything stand out to you guys in round 1? Pretty chalk to this point to you guys?
Yeah, I think you could change some of the names around, but the positions being all wide receivers and running backs is not surprising to me with this year's class. And stuff will change once the draft happens. We see who's on what team, but I don't expect anything to happen that makes Matt Corral jump off the board or Pickett or Howell. Like no, but nothing's gonna happen that I'm gonna be like, oh, I have to go get that guy. Because there's decent names on this list for that first round before you need to grab a quarterback.
Yeah, that's fair. And being a one quarterback, it's not a desperate jump on right away.
Right.
We had to run last year 107, 108, 109 that hit our quarterback run of T-Law and Lance and Fields. Before I took Zach Wilson at the 212. So there was a huge fall between the top three and Zach Wilson. So I was just curious. I was shocked to see James Cook go in the first round. I get the running back needy, not even necessarily needy, but taking the shot on the running back because running backs, if they hit, freaking awesome.
Ty, do you think Kyron Williams ought to have gone ahead of Cook? Because really, if only 5 running backs come off the board in the first round of the draft out of 12 teams, I think that feels about right. And Cook's in the top 5.
No, I like Cook more than Williams. I think Williams is going to fall a little bit more.
Sure, I agree, but you said you were surprised to see Cook in the first round. I feel like 4 running backs, 8 receivers is a little skewed.
Yeah, well, and Malik Willis is the quarterback everybody's talking up. So I was a little surprised that one of the quarterbacks didn't go late in the first. But I don't know. It will really depend upon Cook's landing spot most likely for me.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I was just surprised to see him go over some others. So we'll see.
So Ty wants Cook is what I'm hearing. He said
right.
He didn't get him at the end of the first.
That's right. Or the 203. I don't know.
You keep waiting on that one, bud.
Yeah, you'll take him at the 201.
If Cook's there, I'm going to take him at the 201. So you may as well just go ahead and take him at the 112 if you want him.
All right. Boyer, anything? Or are you good?
No, I'm good.
All right. So let's jump forward to 201. Andy is currently taken
Drake London
in this draft. Andy's pretty solid top to bottom.
Thanks.
To be honest with you, I actually, before Andy said, well, if you look at who's after Tyler at the 112, the 201 to 202 both have quarterbacks. I consider taking a quarterback there for Andy.
I mean, I have Burrow. I realize Brady's only going to play for 10 more years, but I've got Burrow, so I'll address it when Brady actually retires and stays done.
That's fair. Because I consider throwing a rookie quarterback in there, letting him sit. You have the ability to let him sit for a year or two.
That's true. I got the taxi.
Hope that he picks it up from that point. So I consider throwing a quarterback in there, but since Andy's talking no quarterbacks, I will go ahead and skip out on that one. And then I will. You got Kyle Pitts. That's right. I was going to debate on drafting you a tight end here, but I don't know that you're going to take another tight end. So let's go ahead at the 201. I'm going to give Andy George Pickens. He's coming off an injury, but he had a stud freshman year, got hit with some injuries sophomore and junior year. But I think he could be a solid player. He's one I was kind of surprised it didn't go at that 11-12 mark. Over James Cook. I saw James Cook falling to Pickens by a pick or two maybe there.
Fair.
That was about it, just because there are a couple wide receivers that I think could be sliding their way right above these spots.
So a lot of mock drafts have him going to the Bears in the second round. If he goes to the Bears, do you view him as highly?
No. I don't know what to do with the Bears here. All right, I have no idea what to do. You sell. So all right, so I took Andy with George Pickens. So he's currently got Drake London and George Pickens, both coming off injuries. So it looks like my team.
Hey, what am I gonna do?
All right, so Boyer, you have Underhill at the 202.
Yeah, so we were asking about his quarterbacks. He's got Mahomes and Hurts, so he's fine. Running backs, he's got Jacobs and Connor, and he does have the ageless wonder in Cordero Patterson. But then his other running backs, he's been stacking running backs on his bench, and it makes it seem like he knows that it's a problem. He's got Ronald Jones, Damian Williams, Matt Breida, Mark Ingram, all sitting on his bench that he's kind of been adding throughout the offseason. And I think that that's probably where he needs to go to get some youth in, especially with Jacobs, who's getting a little bit older, but he's still useful for a few seasons, I imagine. And then James Conner, who I imagine his legs are going to fall off at some point here in the next year or two. He's got Waddle, he's got McLaurin, he's got Hollywood. His wide receivers are okay. I think he's going with Kyron Williams here.
Okay. Kyron Williams off the board at the 202. That brings Andy up to pick for me again.
Yep. All right. So if I were managing Ty's team, I would take a quarterback here because between Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Carson Wentz, and Sam Darnold, none of those are getting me up in the morning. You know what I mean? But I'm not managing Ty's team. Ty's managing Ty's team. And if I know Ty like I think I do,
He's taking Trey.
He's taking Trey McBride. Honestly, Ty's probably hoping that Trey McBride falls to his next pick, which I'm sure is 2 or 3 picks away. But no, he should take Trey McBride here because he wants it.
I don't have another pick until the 5th round.
Ah, well, Trey's
Well,
not
you're taking
falling
Trey
that far.
McBride then for sure.
My next pick is the 504.
Yeah, you can get your quarterback then.
All right, fair enough. All right, so then Colin Mattoon comes on the board here. Like we talked about, he's got Derek Carr and Josh Allen, so he still doesn't need a quarterback. He really, what did he take in the first round? He took Garrett Wilson, which is a good pick. So, do I? Oh, this is stupid.
He trades down.
He trades down.
Yeah, we're not projecting trades. I don't have the energy for that. Barely had time to learn all these names we're saying.
That's fair. I think Colin goes for a young upside running back, and that's going to be Tyler Algiere.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, the thing is that his team is just stacked on stack that he can just add in rookies wherever he wants to and let them sit and hang out for a while.
Yeah, well, and his running backs are a little bit older, so he's got Kamara, Jones, and Chubb. So I think that his best situation here, grabbing a wide receiver in the first round, is going with a possible upside running back. I was between Algiere and Brian Robinson. Were kind of my thoughts, and I decided to run with Tyler Algiere there. A lot of people have him ranked in like that Rashad White area. So him getting to here, I think, is a good pick for Colin Mattoon. So, Boyer, you've got Matt on the clock at 2:05.
All right. Matt has Tannehill and Winston and Tagovailoa at quarterback. He's got Saquon and
McCaffrey.
There.
And then he's got Chris Carson and Alec Collins.
Yep.
So, I mean, he could possibly use another running back, but, I mean, you got McCaffrey and Saquon.
At wide receiver, I'm seeing Deontay Johnson, Gallup.
Elijah Moore.
He's got Thielen.
Sutton.
So there's some good there. Man, he could go all sorts of ways here. I wouldn't blame him if he went with a quarterback because Tannehill didn't look good last year. Jameis Winston is a band-aid quarterback at this point. So I wouldn't blame him if he went to the quarterback. I'm going to go with Kenny Pickett.
Interesting. All right, first quarterback off the board, Kenny Pickett. Not what I was expecting, but we'll take it. I do think this is the first quarterback off the board here to Matt at the 205.
Yeah, I think if you're not planning on taking one, Ty, and I don't think that you are, then this is about the first time that one would need to go off the board. There's enough talent in this draft, and there's a lack of quarterback talent that I think it makes it to the middle of the second.
I've got 2 first rounders right now next year, so
You can get a quarterback then.
I'm banking to see what Zach Wilson and Trey Lance do this year.
Fair.
Before I decide how heavily I got to invest in a quarterback.
Fair.
All right, so 206 goes to Andy, and that's the Colin Kelly pick.
Yep. Colin's already got Spiller in this draft. His receivers are okay, but they're all kind of older. He's got Cooper, he's got Allen, he's got Bobby Trees. So I'm looking to get him a big receiver. And I like, he's not on the guys here, Christian Watson.
Yep.
Had the huge Senior Bowl. He's 6'4". He ran a sub 4.4 40. I'm on board for that all day, guys. I don't care what college he went to. I don't know what college he went to.
I think he may end up in that 202, 203 range.
So you're saying you're picking him?
Not necessarily. I think he is. Him and George Pickens are close there in that. I think David Bell might fall. I think Kyron Williams might fall a little bit more. If I don't take Trey McBride here, I mean, it just pushes some of these people up.
I'm curious to see where McBride goes because I got to think you're feeling okay about Freiermuth with how he ended the season. And there's a lot of tight end needy teams in our league. So it'll be interesting to see if somebody jumps at that because like rookie tight ends historically have not been that great.
Right.
So I'm curious on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
But I fully expect you to be the one to take them. So.
I mean, listen, all of these guys are rookies, Andy, so they're all fairly young. Okay.
Yeah, I know you love them all.
All right. I do love the Christian Watson pick there. If he falls that far, I think that's a great pick. So we got Boyer up next at the 207. All right, so it might be a little spicy. He's got Herbert, which is fine. He's got Jared Goff, which is not a great choice, and he's got Davis Mills.
Hey, don't be dissing my Davis Mills.
I think Davis Mills could be a fine 1 week replacement for you this year.
That guy's my boy right now. Okay, he was the last pick in the draft last year, and he actually matters somewhat. I'm so happy about that pick.
Right, but with that, having just Herbert is what I'm going to say, because you've got Jared Goff and Davis Mills. I think Boyer's the next one to take a quarterback. And if I'm taking a quarterback and Pickens is already off the board because I'm not that high on Pickens, I'm going to take the rushing upside of Malik Willis here at the 207. Boyer gets a possible quarterback 2 here to fill in over Goff and his boy Davis Mills, the Mr. Irrelevant from last year, that turned out to look nice. All right, so the 208's up, and it's Boyer again. So, Andy, do you want to pick for Boyer here?
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Okay, so Boyer's got a so that was Boyer's first pick in this draft as a quarterback, which is interesting. Boyer's team is very solid top to bottom, but didn't make the playoffs more on bad luck than anything last year. He's fine at tight end with Mark Andrews. He's got Metcalf, Godwin, AJB at receiver, Najee, Eckler, and Kareem Hunt at running back. So I think best available makes the most sense. He's probably going best available for both of these. I don't think Boyer's too worried about getting a backup quarterback when he could add some talent. So I personally.
At this point, I think Malik Willis is the best available. That's why I took him.
You're probably not wrong, but it's just a matter of we're worrying about who's going to contribute to his team.
But if Big Herbs goes down, he's done unless he's got a guy like Malik Willis or somebody that can have that upside.
I mean, is Malik Willis going to save your season? Probably not in his rookie year.
Maybe by week 7 or 8 when Herbs goes down, you might need him.
I mean, Boyer would just come to me and beg and plead to have
Tom Brady
the
for the last
ageless
half
wonder
of the year.
Tom Brady.
And I'm sure you would take me to the cleaners and I would gladly pay it.
See, we all know how this works. We know each other well enough at this point. Boyer doesn't want to have to deal with Malik Willis. He wants Tom Brady to win him a Super Bowl. We all know how it goes.
That's fair.
All right, so Boyer doesn't really need anything, I don't think. So I'm going off the list again, which makes me uncomfortable. But
no, a lot of these guys right here are not supposed to be on this list.
All right, well, that makes me feel a little better.
Yes, a lot of these guys are shit that you're not going to touch.
Okay, then I'm going to give him Metchi from Alabama.
John Metchi.
Yeah, I like him.
John Metchi at the 208. I think that's a good pick.
Congrats, Boyer.
I think he falls because of his injury a little bit as well. He was a little bit underproductive this year, but it's a solid choice. So then, Boyer, you want to pick up Matt at 209?
Yeah. I was just at Matt. So, man, he could use Saquon and McCaffrey and Carson. I think it probably goes best available wide receiver here. Question is, who is that? Especially with like Thielen getting older, who knows how much longer he'll last. So let's take a look here. Bell is off the board, right?
Yeah, Bell or David Bell went off at the 112.
112. Okay, I can't see the 112, so I had to check.
Oh, my fault.
You're okay. All right, then without Bell there, I think Justin Ross is an interesting pick here. I think he's high risk to me. Like, he feels like he could be a bust, but there's an immense amount of athleticism with him. And I feel like in the right spot, he could really shine. So I think he's going to take a shot at Justin Ross.
I am not mad about that pick. So the 210 comes to Paul. Paul has Jamison Williams. He has Jahan Dotson. And this is his third pick. So, I mean, we kind of talked about Lamar Jackson's really his only quarterback, but he probably doesn't go quarterback here. I don't see there being a tight end here that's worth taking. He's got Dallas Goedert. All right. So he's grabbed 2 wide receivers. I was between Wandale, giving him quote unquote the top available wide receiver, which I don't know how I feel about Wandale. Or taking a shot on one of these running backs. And I did say I was between Tyler Algiere and Brian Robinson for the 204. So I'm going to give Brian Robinson to Paul here at the 210. So then we got Boyer, you've got Andrew at the 211, and then Andy, you've got Matt at the 212 after that.
Yep.
All right. So looking at Andrew's team, who is Andrew drafted by this point in the draft?
Andrew has just his own picks. So he has James Cook right now.
Okay. Man, he's got a pretty solid team up and down. So like I'm thinking just best available for him, probably going to end up being a wide receiver just because Diggs is getting a little older. So let me take a look at wide receivers here. This is kind of the tough part in the draft, just because at this point it's going to be such personal preference as far as who you like. They're starting to get to the point where they're dart throws. So I'm going to go with Jalen Tolbert. He was at a small school, but he produced like crazy, and that kind of production isn't something you can really ignore. If he goes to a right spot somewhere in day 2, borderline day 3. Yeah, I think he'd feel confident leaving him on the bench, letting him sit for a year or two, and see if he can't turn into something to help replace Diggs at some point.
Let's be clear. We totally fucked this up. If this happens, the 212. Andy, can I just say that Skye Moore should be picked here because we clearly missed Skye Moore.
I mean, that's fair.
I think Skye Moore goes in the first 2 rounds.
You're probably not wrong.
Unless you have a guy that you think Matt needs to take.
No, I mean, I think that makes sense.
I think Skye Moore should go closer to the Pickens Watson range.
Yeah, I mean, my issue with Skye Moore, he's not even 5'10", right? So like that puts him off my board in my eyes. He's very talented, but if he's just going to be a Rondale Moore, I don't want that. And there's people that love Rondale Moore, but I don't think that that's going to lead to consistent high levels of productivity. Outside of a guy like Antonio Brown, short receivers just don't happen. So I'm not telling you you're wrong because you know more about it than I would, but Skye Moore's off my board.
I think he gets drafted day 2, early day 3 in the NFL draft, which will shoot him up a lot of people's board.
Probably.
Because Wan'Dale Robinson isn't that big either, and he would be quote unquote one of the next top available wide receivers.
Well, I was looking at Zamir White since he already got a quarterback, and I just gave him Metchi a few picks ago. Matt's team is decent but aging. So I'm just trying to spread it around that. But Zamir White was who I was looking at.
Okay, I'll give him Zamir White. I'm not mad about that pick either.
I mean, I agree with you when you say that you expect Skye Moore to be drafted in the top 2 rounds of our draft. I'm just not going to be the one that does it.
That's fine. I get it.
But I don't pick after 201, and I'm not taking him there for sure. So
no, I think Skye Moore will shock somebody, and he'll end up in this middle 2nd round when he gets higher draft capital than we expect.
Sure, that's fair.
But with that, any thoughts on round 2 here? Because I think round 2, I threw out my thought on Skye Moore. Any thoughts on round 2? Who might have missed? Anybody that could be way off? Or are you guys pretty content with where that landed?
I think it feels about right. 2 quarterbacks, a tight end, and the rest is just wide receivers and running backs based on needs and best available. I mean, it's all going to change in 4 days when the draft happens. So what the fuck do we know?
True. All right. Well, With that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of this, and hello.
Hey.
We will wrap things up. Skye Moore is going to be my shout out. I do think Matt Corral possibly ends up in the second round as well if somebody decides they want to reach for not even reach, but grab a quarterback back into the second. Those are the two that I would consider a second round talent that may or may not end there, but who do you drop out? So
yeah,
we'll see what happens. Were any other thoughts on that? Or
Yeah, I like Jerome Ford, and running back in Dynasty is so hard to come by. I wouldn't blame somebody for taking a chance on him because he looks like he was really good. He just didn't get a ton of opportunity in Alabama, but when he did, he proved that he can play. So in the right situation, I could see where someone would want to take him up in the second.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I like Jerome Ford as well. I just don't know where to put him.
You're right.
So we'll see. I mean, he could be that Elijah Mitchell third rounder that comes in and does well. I mean, who knows? Being as this is the second year of this league, who the hell knows where people are going to be taking who?
I would argue any running back that goes to the 49ers will automatically shoot up draft boards like crazy.
as they should.
Pretty much, unless you're Sermon.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to that guy, but
They're crazy. So, all right. With that, we'll see what happens with the draft come this weekend. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Let us know what kind of idiots we are because we didn't pick certain people, or because
just tell us all who you were gonna pick instead, and then we can talk about that.
Yeah. And tell me how dumb Boyer is for taking Kenny Pickett first. I would like to hear about that. Other than that, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. We'll see how this plays out come our draft time. I'm excited to see if we get any of these right.
I'm excited for a slow draft.
Yes, trades. All over.
Here's hoping.
So, all right. If you guys got nothing else, we'll see you guys.